I find it ironic that Singapore, the most efficient autocracy on the planet, is telling us that democracy is perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, trust me when I say a South African can tell you democracy does not work, ever. South Africa is the most inefficient, corrupt country in the world, and with juju. Wait, Asisma, no. Ladies and gentlemen, autocracy works, democracy doesn't. We only use a democracy when we have to, when we stop the possibility of an autocracy. That's what side opposition tell you in today's debate. To show you why Singapore have got this debate dead wrong, I'm going to answer two simple questions of rebuttal. One, is this policy fair? Two, do we get better monetary policy? So in terms of is this policy fair, we got the idea from side proposition that people should be, people should be able to decide what they prefer in terms of monetary policy. To which we have three responses. So one, we do. We allow for people, like we said in our model, to set objectives for the central bank. They needed to show us why we need to be able to allow the people to set the process at which the central bank achieves those objectives. Because there are thousands of different ways any director can achieve an objective set by the public. Secondly, we'd say, why would we not allow them to define the process? And here we tell you is that they don't know enough. Economic policy is super complicated. Monetary policy is the holy grail of complexity. They say we'll teach people. Let's respond to teach people on three levels. One, it concedes to a need to educate people. It concedes to the fact that you need to inform people in order for them to be good voters. Secondly, in terms of practicalities, you want to educate 50 million people in South Africa, 20 million of which never got an education in the first place. So we just don't think that you're going to be able to embark on this massive education program. Thirdly, we just argue people who never went to school, people who dropped out of school. Those kinds of people aren't going to have the same kind of knowledge. And if you want a representative society, you want everybody voting. So now, I'd like to just deal with their POI, because I found this quite funny. When they told us Obamacare, Obamacare is the epitome of how ignorant and stupid the people of America can sometimes be. That is the epitome showing how people led to watered down solutions due to democracy. So now let's go into the second question. Do we get better monetary policy? And here they tell you that they're more accountable to the rich bankers than they are to the rest of society. Four responses. One, people won't be able to hold them accountable if they have no idea what they're doing. People don't know enough about the monetary system and therefore won't be able to hold them accountable. Secondly, you make it worse. Rich people are able to buy their elections and then have to pay those rich people back during their terms, otherwise they won't sponsor their next election. Thirdly, very simply, if they're doing a bad job, we fire them. Not after 10 years. The second an independent body decides if they're doing a bad job, we just fire them. Fourthly, we just don't think these people are evil. No banker goes, how can I harm the poor people? No. They think about things and we just don't think that they're evil. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't get better monetary policy and their policy is not fair. But now in my substantive, I'm going to be showing you specifically why we get worse monetary policy. And here I'm going to be establishing independence. So we've already established the question in today's debate is whether democratization creates the best monetary policy. So what I'll show to you here in this point of independence is that we undermine the independence of the central bank, and in so doing, compromises the decision-making process and removes the most fundamental aspect of control the central bank has. So let's look at this. Here, the variety of different options a central bank director can take are limitless. They can target growth, inflation, exchange rates, unemployment, interest rates. There's a very complex process in order to manage and deal with all these different options. But they need to sometimes make very tough short-term decisions for the long term. for the better of the long-term society, because they have to balance out the two, and it's very complex, like we've told you. Under our model, like we've established, we get the best possible incentives for these people. Under their model, a director stands more to gain by giving in to popular policy in the short term, because he has to worry about being elected again in the next 2 years, and he doesn't specifically care what's going to happen in 20 years, because then he's not running for office. So we think that popular policy doesn't mean good policy. Let me give you an example. So if you lower interest rates, I'll take you in a moment, if you lower interest rates, you give people more money because it's easier for the banks to loan out. More people have money in their pockets, they think, great. But over the long term, you lead to massive inflation. You lead to crippling your export system. Yes, ma'am?
Even if we were to consider that on our side, people can vote these directors out after 4 to 6 years. On your side, they enjoy immunity for as long as 8 to 14 years.
So we wouldn't give them immunity. It's that simple. Okay, carrying on. Okay, so when this happens, and when you get to this point that they're crippling the economy, then they have to change back and raise interest rates to do the opposite thing. So when you raise interest rates, there's less money in the economy and less people to spend that money, curbing demand and curbing inflation. But people resent this because they have less money. Therefore, they have to go back and they're going to vote in any director that's going to say, I will lower the interest rates. That's what their policy does. So our concern is that the central bank will give in to the will of the people. So now let's look at why this is important. So on a first level, I showed you why we ruin the incentive structure for a director. But on a second level, I want to look at credibility from two specific actors. Firstly, in terms of investors and businesses, and secondly, in terms of a regular person on the ground, in specific relation to price stability. Price stability is based on perceptions and expectations. So if a worker perceives there's going to be a 10% inflation in the coming year, he's going to demand a 10% raise, and then the company is going to give that out to their consumers by raising their prices. In the status quo, if inflation rises too quickly, we can raise the interest level and curb demand and supply. But, like I explained, that is not friendly policy because it leaves people with less money in their pockets. So a business investor, they could factor this in under the status quo that the bank is going to raise interest levels. Now they can't. They don't know how the bank is going to react because they don't know if they're going to do X, Y, Z because X, Y, Z has to be popular. But secondly, in terms of a person on the ground, they're seeing a volatile, constantly changing central bank, inconsistent and unreliable. We're going to lose buy-in from the central bank, which directly clashes with their second matter. So let's paint you a picture of what their world looks like. A volatile world of constantly changing policy. What does this mean? Increased price instability, reduced investment, and a worse economic picture. Proposition cripples the most valuable monetary institution in society. I'm proud to oppose.